Let's see if it works. And if it does, then we're going to be golden and we don't have to do much. I'm going to stop streaming here. Okay, so, all right, I think I got the link. I'm sorry again. I apologize for
All right.
No worries.
No worries. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the link. I'm going to send the link here. I'm going to. Okay. So I'm going to end this stream.
Gary is such a great guy. He's already in the chat.
Yeah, I know that he's a very avid supporter.
Yeah, he is indeed.
So we are live on YouTube, by the way. I hope that right now we are, we have the, so if anybody is watching this, can you let us know if you hear us all? Okay.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
I think there's a
Testing
delay.
one. Okay.
There's a delay between when we say things and when they actually. Okay. And I'm gonna change things. You know, put the thumbnails and all that when we're done. Okay, sounds good. All right. So yes, Sydney, I'm sorry we have to kind of do it again.
No worries. I'll shorten it up this time.
Yeah, the vision about WADA. What is it all about, and how did it came to be?
Yeah. So Mercy and I met on Afro FinLab, and WADA is a vision child of Mercy's, and it really is about participating in this fourth industrial revolution. There's a lot that's going on the African continent, as well as in the diaspora. And WADA is positioning itself to be able to enable, a lot of the projects that we want to get done on the continent, as well as projects that we want to get done in the diaspora, and kind of connecting the two together. So I don't want to I don't want to talk about Mercy's vision when we have the visionary here. So I'll let her jump in and explain more about where we're going with this.
Yeah, so it looks like it's my vision, but really it's sort of it's an African ancestral vision here. You know, like it's not just one person. It's just all these. It's just the time that we are in. In terms of, you know, like when we look at Africa, where Africa is at in terms of its population, in terms of the structures that we have in place, in terms of, like sort of the geopolitical situation in Africa. And then we look at this new technology, distributed ledger technology. We look at Cardano and its focus on Africa, the fact that that particular protocol is sort of built in such a way as to address whether it's identities, whether it's record keeping, whether it's finance, whether it's risk management, like it just tackles everything that Africa needs at this point in time. And I know that it's not just Cardano, there are other distributed ledger technologies or blockchains that, do various things. But the way that WADA sort of came together was just because it was something that needed to be done. We the right people got together and we realized that this is something that needs to be done at this point in time.
I see. I see the vision includes a lot of capacity building. This is something that I've been exposed to as an international finance professional, where there were a lot of projects back in the day when we would basically build capacity in local communities in order to kind of bring them into the world economy. And I can't help but see those kind of parallels here. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to have the skill sets in order to operate these new technologies. You could have the best technology in the world and bring it to the developing country, but if you don't have the skill set to operate it, it basically becomes a big hindrance there. So it's very important to see these kind of projects actually come to Cardano for funding and get their fair share of attention and funding.
Exactly. So in WADA, what we are, and basically we our initial focus was actually the western part of Africa, which is West Africa. Very quickly, and John T will be talking a lot more about this because he's more focused on Central Africa, the DRC. Very quickly, we are sort of expanding to Central and even Southern Africa. And you're absolutely right, Umed. It doesn't matter how good the technology is. At the end of the day, it has to be accessible to the people who would benefit most from that technology. So our main mission is sort of connecting developers and entrepreneurs into the Cardano ecosystem and also into distributed ledger technologies in general. So how we are doing this is obviously infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
We are focusing a lot on education. And then we are focusing on how to actually, how do we actually equip our developers or our entrepreneurs to actually build the dApps that we need, right? To sort of, as Sydney said originally, this fourth industrial revolution that we're going through, how do we make sure that we are ready to do that? How do we automate, and as, sometimes we know Charles to say, remove these rent seekers. So the way that we would be doing that obviously is, where everything is sort of automated.
Genty, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, again, as Mercy was saying, that the infrastructure is very much important, and also the political aspects of those countries, they're still relatively young. So by being young, they are more open to new ideas. Many politicians the leaders may be old, but those who participate recently are mostly young. So technologies such as blockchains are accessible to them. And even in more developed countries, they're still changing or reviewing legislations. As soon as a few days ago, even in the US, they were still covering how they were going to regulate or not regulate cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. So you may think that in those countries in Africa, that discussion has not even yet happened. So we may be in a position actually to format it in a convenient way or in a more objective way.
Which I think is a huge point, because it's not dealing with an old infrastructure, right? It's getting to start off and to build it the way, or at least to have conversations around how to build it in a way that supports the future that you want to create. I had a friend actually right before, and I'm sure everyone's heard this probably already, but that El Salvador has decided to make Bitcoin legal tender.
Yeah,
that's a seismic shift. That's huge. That's massive, and all it does is give credence to what we all know is that this is the new kind of financial infrastructure for the future, and it's happening. It's happening slowly. Not really, I guess. It's actually happening pretty quick, but it's happening.
Yes, I mean, I do have certain reservations. Again, it's just my experience kind of speaking about that. But I do believe that projects like Cardano have a much better sort of architectural prowess to address the needs of the countries and become something that countries could build upon. you know, Bitcoin in its own right has the you know, the capacity to do what Bitcoin does best, which is the store of value. But beyond that, I think, you know, using it as a legal tender when the transaction per second, the capacity of a small country would, you know, require a lot of you know, throughput. I would argue this is not an ideal situation for little countries or for big countries, whatever, to build upon that. But that again being said, you know, I think this is a seismic shift. I do agree with you, Sydney. But you know, I can't help but wonder whether Bitcoin, in the case of El Salvador, was chosen just as a you know, instrument to draw attention for a country that is small and might need some concessions from the powers that be. But that's another topic of the conversation.
Well, I think it's an important point, because more so than you know, how technically viable Bitcoin is to handle, to be a legal money, I think is kind of an aside to the idea that it's a mental shift. You know, so when I think of a seismic shift, that's pretty much where it comes from for me. I think it's a mental shift. We've accepted. I mean, it's happened in the U.S. a little bit with the banks, or the federal government basically saying that banks can custody cryptocurrency. That was another, you know, in my opinion, seismic shift. Even though you can't go to your local bank today and necessarily get Bitcoin. It's just the idea that people who are not in this financial world are being exposed to it by the powers that be, and the powers that be are conceding that the current financial system is in an evolution. So this, I mean, I can't go down to my nearest convenience store and use Bitcoin, Cardano, Ethereum, any cryptocurrency to purchase. But in the near future, I think, you know, in a couple of cycles, maybe we will be able to do that. And at that point, I think, you know, these concerns that we have about transaction speed and, you know, those types of things will kind of subside. And I don't think it's going to be like a one winner kind of protocol. Cardano is one of the protocols that started building based on interoperability. And I absolutely see the future as more transactional, more so than you know, which protocol is winning. They're all going to serve their purpose.
And to add to that is that usually the name recognition is what usually plays a big role in adoption. It's like, I remember when we were young, we used to call brands by the tool we use. For example, you're going to say aspirin is all like pain relievers, and it's not all of them that are aspirin, but because of aspirin, we kind of knew the usage of a medication. Even though the branding may be another name, they will just tell you that this is aspirin. So when you talk about Bitcoin, any legislator, any political actor who hears that another country has basically been using Bitcoin will know that Cardano is some type of Bitcoin. They basically will already have heard about the usage. And the legal tender, even in the US, when they started using US dollars themselves, when one country started using US dollars as a legal tender in their country, actually in Congo, we use US dollars as well. It's like in that same country. Zimbabwe uses it. So some other country uses the US dollars, and saying that people are starting to use cryptocurrencies as legal tender, that is what actually is new. And another country which uses the dollars as well will think twice before adopting or not adopting cryptocurrencies, because after all, they're already using another currency than their own national currencies.
Exactly. And just to add a little bit to that, you know, one thing that we have talked about is this trust barrier when it comes to adoption of, you know, cryptocurrencies or blockchain in general, in Africa especially, because the initial exposure that people have had is that it's a scam, right? So just having this whole country, you know, come out and say, yes, you know, like we are adopting it, you know, I totally agree with with John T in the sense that, you know, like gives it some kind of credibility, you know, like it's a small step towards credibility for sure.
Yes, I want to take this opportunity to shift the gears a little bit, maybe talk about the projects that you've been working on within WADA and see, you know, what kind of use cases you're seeing, what kind of, applications of this technology that are being discussed, whether it be on the local level with companies or with governments. You know, if you have that kind of access, I would like to get a sense of that.
I think I'll let John T start with that. Yeah, and then I can add
just
to it.
Going back again to the topic of being adopted as a legal tender, we had reviewed the difficulties of using cryptocurrencies, and those difficulties rely upon misinformation. As Mercy said, the first experience people had about cryptocurrencies was on the Bitcoin being used as a get-rich-quick scam. Many people were telling you to buy Bitcoin, but they were not giving you any access to the Bitcoin you were buying, and your funds were in some secret location until the investor or the person who allowed you to access those Bitcoin vanished, and basically people were losing money. And that is only because it was still something new. So people were not educated. They could see the information about Bitcoin that it's rising, and they could believe those people who were mentioning it. But the governments themselves were not involved at the beginning. And the only time they were involved is when people started complaining about those scams and people losing money. So they kind of thought that maybe they're going to go and protect the population against those instruments of stealing, whereas as we know them as instruments of innovation. So we thought about promoting the usage of blockchain in Congo. For example, the proposal we submitted was to create more awareness among legislators in Congo, because first of all, 80% of legislators in Congo are younger than 50, and quite half will be even younger than 30. One vice president of the General Assembly herself was like 23. So they kind of are young and they know about cryptocurrencies, but we want to tell them as to what are the use cases. Like, why is the technology useful? Why is the technology applicable to such a young country? For example, when you look at the usage of Cardano for the Minister of Education in Ethiopia, that is an applicable case. And I will think that in Congo, or even private institutions, will also be ready to use such a technology. But first of all, before they use it, because of the whole red tape in those countries, they're quite heavily managed in terms of political governance for control and also for other purposes. Some will say for security purposes. But once you get legislators aware of the benefits of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies such as Cardano, you are at least buying yourself time to innovate, so that, because catching up with the innovation, even ourselves, we are not able to keep up with all the innovation happening in cryptocurrencies, let alone people are going to hear it for the first or second time. So we thought of creating that proposal so that we can at least frame the discussion in a more accessible way for us to showcase the benefits of it. And through the proposal, we had asked funds through Fund 4 to basically create a public event whereby some legislators will be invited. I have my own brother who is a member of parliament. I told him about the idea of getting his colleagues and a few other individuals who are very active. And they will attend the event. We're going to broadcast it, hopefully, and create at least awareness among the powerful individual in the DRC, so that at least they kind of know that this is happening, this is relatively good. We were able to ask questions. You know, when they ask questions, that's when you know how far you can actually tell them about the information. So that will be a good opportunity to even understand their own concerns. Of course, the scams will come up, but we will have an opportunity at least to address them as a community.
So this is great. Mercy, you wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah, you know, like there are a lot of proposals. So the proposal that John T just talked about is going to happen in Kinshasa. Kinshasa in DRC. So that's the capital. And the title of the proposal is Cardano Adoption in DRC Congo. We are doing the same thing with another group of developers also in DRC. Their name is Up to Date Developers. So basically, what we're doing in WADA is that we are creating our own sort of, like we call them hubs. So sort of solution centers, whereby, like this goes back to what we're talking about, capacity building, infrastructure. One of the huge problems that we have is, like electricity, it's internet, it's just the space, and just even the people, for them to congregate together, learn something, create something. So what John T just described is sort of the first step in Congo. And then we have this other up-to-date developers. They're already established. But what we are planning to do is to find some of these very enterprising groups and then partner with them, introduce blockchain with them, and then begin to sort of build with them in that sense. So there's that other proposal as well. It's in the developer ecosystem, up-to-date developers. And then for WADA, we have, we are bringing in developers in Cameroon, dev incentives in Cameroon. So some of us might know Megan and Manfo. They are right now in Cameroon. They are trying to set up. That's why they are not on this call. Normally, they want to be out there and to, engage in that sense. So that's another one of our proposals. Ume, do you want me to sort of go through, because we have quite a few, or should we stop here and then maybe ask specific questions, or how does that look like?
No, I mean, this is the first live session of Slot Leader. I just wanted to basically open it up so that it could be a free form kind of discussion about your project. And,
Okay.
anything goes, as long as you want to discuss different aspects of your project, we could do that. But, as you were talking about your project, I couldn't help but think about the situation a lot of African countries could be in, and the wider implication of blockchain infrastructure. And one of the things that sort of keeps me up at night, quote unquote, is the blockchain infrastructure and the blockchain technology being sort of used by certain nation states in order to extend their influence. And I particularly I'm concerned about China. And the reason why I'm concerned about it is that they might have a better solution, faster solution, but and that would give the countries in Africa would solve a lot of their problems. Let's say identity would be solved. Let's say the land records will be solved. You name it, right? And then, but at the expense of being, tied to that ecosystem. So I kind of think about it from a geopolitics perspective, and I can't help but see that kind of opening for sort of not so open or closed systems coming into Africa and advancing their sort of sphere of influence through the technology. And do you see that as a risk, or do you, because what I'm seeing is that we have from the democratic open societies, we are lagging there in terms of development. If some country comes in and gives you a solution that solves a lot of your problems and helps you manage your country better, do you think the countries in Africa would say, okay, well, I'm just going to opt into that system, and even though it basically makes them less interoperable with the rest of the world? Does that make sense? You know, that
Yeah, yeah, it does. I'm just going to just quickly start and then throw it over to to Sydney and John T. But what I think is is very relevant. That's a very relevant thing that should keep us up at night, all of us, because like whoever brings the solutions quickest first, like we'll take it kind of thing. So in that sense, we know we appreciate IOG in terms of what they're doing. They have something to show in Ethiopia, and I know that they are in Ghana right now. And they are sort of setting up some of these regional offices. So in that sense, like on that level of government, that is something that it's a competition, right? However, for WADA, that is why education is such a big thing for us. Like what John T talked about. So these kind of events, and these are things that we're going to replicate in Ghana, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, in most of our other countries. Like you target these sort of ministers, these influential people, you bring the education, they get to know which one is decentralized and which one is centralized, and what are the advantages and disadvantages. In that case, they know that, say, if China brings them something that might seem, too centralized, they know which one is good and which one is not so good. In addition, just the grassroots sort of developers, that education for them to know. So I think that the easiest way to sort of look at some of these things is that at the end of the day, it's education, and we need to go fast, and we need to go, go big as well. And that's how we're looking at it. And sometimes too, Umed, like this is big. This is when we talk of the fourth industrial revolution, when we look at Africa, when we look at diaspora, we look at most of these developing countries. Sometimes I feel like there's space for everybody. There's space. Of course, there are some good blockchain solutions like Cardano, and there are some that are not so good. But as far as WADA goes, we just want to focus. We just want to get the work done. We just want to go into the rural areas. Go into the universities, talk to the young people, influence, and then that's how we see it going. I don't know if Sydney or John T has anything to add to that.
Yeah, I would love to jump in there. That question has so much inside of it. But what I will say is that there's a lot that's happening in tandem with the technology, and the technology itself is not the solution. Fortunately, I get to be a part of the WADA team where we're identifying solutions for local communities, because some of those solutions are going to be directly related to what we're doing, with Cardano and the blockchain. And there are other solutions that are going to be present as well in order to, give folks the dignity that they should have to be able to, to reach out to life and enjoy life. And at the same time, I mean, we're at some level exiting this pandemic, which I think everybody's, whether you know it or you've had a chance to experience it, kind of the data behind it. And we know that things have been accelerated. There were things that were planned to be done over the next few years that have just been accelerated as a result of the pandemic, and people being able to connect the same way that we're connecting today, across, geographic regions. So things are moving at a faster pace there. And then on the continent itself, January of this year marked a huge event, in my opinion, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area going into force. So there's a lot of things that are happening in tandem, along with the technology, for the purpose of lifting the continent, as well as the diaspora. And again, I just think that the WADA is well positioned and understanding the technology, and passionate about making change on the continent and the diaspora, and positioning ourselves there so that we can again enable infrastructure, enable solutions, and again allow people to just kind of step up a little bit.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I had a little comment on that topic. I think that when I look at, first of all, the way I was introduced to blockchain was for self-interest. As a person who is in the diaspora, my main need was to send money efficiently and quickly and without too much strings attached as to which country's currency I'm using. So the issue you raised, like a country like China, it's a dimension. It's a political entity which is in the current dimension of countries, or what we call countries. And those grouping of people and of tools are in a dimension which is not in ours for Cardano, because I think of cryptocurrencies as beyond those entities, beyond those dimensions. If we can actually go fast enough, if we delay the movement towards where we should be. For example, Cardano introduced the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia for institutions to validate records. Had that been, for example, open so that an institution can actually, because we already, for example, I own a school in DRC, we've so far had over 15,000 graduates since 2002. So those 15,000 graduates, we have them in our Excel spreadsheets. Had we been able to upload the information on the blockchain, we would have done it already, because we are so overwhelmed with requests for confirmations of those laureates. Over time, it becomes like half a department is just there to sign letters just to confirm that they did graduate. So that's costing us money. And for the blockchain to catch up with an entity such as China, I've been to China, and I was quite impressed. I think they have the resources to do whatever they want to do, but ownership is what matters. Should they come in the game, they are going to come with a lot of weight. But the little players, the private individuals, the little people are not even connected. Economic activity at the macro level is always about self-interest. So basically, at the macro level, we're not going to have an impact compared to China, but at the macro level, once the blockchain is open, they just cannot compete, because a business person, for example, will use the easiest way to get to their goals. And the easiest way is less barriers. So the more barrier you create, the less users you are going to get. So if China would want to go and compete against something which is at the very onset open-minded, that is going to be quite funny to see. I doubt that it's going to be a user, a business person, an individual. We want to go beyond countries. We want to go beyond political entities, because I think at the end of the day, the human society will want to be free out of those limitations. And that's what cryptocurrencies will end up bringing if we really keep everything open source. And I think Cardano, which has an open-minded governance orientation, will be able to transcend those limitations.
I just wanted to jump in there. I think that's a huge point that Dante makes, because even prior to blockchains, the world of software had been opening up anyway. And it's going to continue to. We're not going to go back the other way, because who's going to be the owner and who's going to choose those owners? We've already decided what the benefit and the value of open societies, open technologies, and those things are just going to continue to get better. And I think, to Janti's point, if I'm a business person and I have the choice between a closed architecture and the choice between an open architecture, I'm likely going to take the architecture, because I'm not looking to be controlled.
That's a very important point, Sydney, and I wholeheartedly agree with the philosophy and the potential, economic potential that the open architecture could bring to nation states, to people in general in Africa. And I think that's to people who are making decisions at this at the levels that actually matter. considering the open architecture is a sort of an existential sort of it's a problem of existential proportions. You either you might have to choose between two different kind of architectures where you open, you are interoperable with the world, or you are part of a camp that is closed, and you get a lot of features and bells and whistles, but that ultimately you could be shut off, and things could get south really fast. And that actually creates a cost to a nation states if they are doing cost benefit analysis. Let's say you have lots of features that will help you run your country. They are available right now, but at the expense of giving up that control to an entity that 1,000 miles away could shut you off, or you basically are part of a general ecosystem, that the way that the internet works right now, right? It's an open architecture where you could interoperate with other nations, and you set your own rules within the boundaries of your own nation states, because we don't exist in vacuum. We are subject to laws and regulations of the places where we live, and the open architecture enables that. And I think it gives the individuals and the nation states the latitude to set their own rules, make their own sort of enclaves of legal and digital sort of jurisdictions where people can exist and interact with each other. But that being said, I wanted to cover the issue. You guys are being in the forefront on the ground, talking to people, talking to the recipients of this technology who could benefit.
We lost. Oh, you're muted now, Umed.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
You mentioned the issue of remittances, or being able to transfer money, and I think this is one of the most important innovations of blockchain technology. You cannot underestimate its importance. Even in its nascent form, it's so cost disruptive to the way that we do things currently in the traditional rails that there's no going back. But I wonder if there are any other lower hanging fruits that you on a daily basis encounter in these countries, and that could be, with a minimal amount of resources, could be tapped into and brought to fruition in that regard.
I think I'll let Jonty take that. Like when Jonty came to us,
Yes.
he had 1,001 ideas, as a lot of other proposals that come to WADA. Just before he jumps in, I think one thing that I want us to understand is that like once we create access through infrastructure, and then we do the education, and then we sort of start having those conversations, we believe that will be a way to identify what the issues are, like what the problems are, right? Because then, like we like people living in these communities, and we've made them, like we've helped, to make them able to create. So we're anticipating that a lot of the cutting edge, innovative solutions are actually going to come down the line. Because one thing that we don't want to do is to say that, you know what, you guys, I think you need identity, or, like you guys, maybe record keeping will do for you. I think that these things in terms of ownership is good when people feel like, okay, this is our, this is the pain point, and this is how we want to address it.
And I think when I hear the founders of Cardano talk, like for example, Charles, when he talks about what people need in Africa, you kind of understand that he gets the idea, because in my experience, what I've seen that people, and myself at one point, maybe even today, the things that I cherish the most is record keeping. For example, if somebody would have told me, what is the most important information you would like to keep somewhere? I have so many safes. I have a fire safe. I have, like at one point, I just want to send it out there so that I know that should I look for it, I'll be able to find it. So record keeping is very important for nations that are still vulnerable. For example, if you have like a flood, you have refugees. Recently in Goma, we had this volcano which erupted. In our schools, we had to move the servers. You remember those records I was telling you? Then laptops and some other in USB storage. So we had to move them from one location to another just because we didn't know how to safeguard them. We have backups, but they're still in a physical format, very quite physically located. And individuals also have other low-hanging fruits that blockchain will provide to them. Little savings. For example, somebody who has like $40 saved may not have to go to a bank to just deposit the $40. It may take them 20 miles to walk, get to the location, to the branch, open a branch. They may not even be allowed to open the branch, their account. So they have their savings at home under the mattress, and that is a risk which blockchain can solve, because blockchain can allow you to save money away from your physical location. And blockchain can allow you to save small amounts of money without having to go through the process of opening a bank account. So I think those low-hanging fruits will be quite open once I can say it's already done, because when I see in Kenya, for example, the problem is that technology is still intertwined. You still need to have internet access, you still need to have some electricity, but once those two elements are there, people are already using the blockchain. For example, freelancers in Kenya, whenever you want to pay them, they will tell you, you know what, I prefer you pay me in cryptocurrency. Why is that? Because for them, it's more convenient to even receive it and send it. So once we have more countries and more communities connected on the internet and having electricity, which is quite reliable, with mobile phones, it's going to be even more so adopted. So I think low-hanging fruits, the benefit of it is going to be, it's already visible. I would say savings and record keeping, possibly some basic information for kids, their addresses, their identification in terms of schooling, medical records, some things like that. Somebody will want to keep them in a safe place, and blockchains offers one safe place.
I mean, when I think about it in developed countries, right, the amount of resources that we spend in order to actually keep these records in the traditional rails is staggering. And blockchain just decimates those costs, which makes it very, very affordable for any country to, pretty much to be able to have access to this otherwise unachievable or inaccessible type of, institution or that other developed countries actually enjoy, and that takes a long time to build. Even if you have everything in place, sometimes I kind of can't help but think about Singapore and how much they invested in their future consistently for a long time in order to come and become one of the sort of developed sort of nations in the United in the world. And but if you think about blockchain as a turnkey solution, and this is very important, right? If I would say not if, but when IOHK gets to a point where they have the key components of running a country in place, then adopting something and bringing a country into the world arena, economic arena, is going to be a matter of months rather than a matter of years of investing and keeping at it. So it becomes very easy for a country X or Y saying, okay, well, we want to be part of this, and this is the configuration of the system we would like to put in place because we have laws or we have these restrictions, etc. And then you configure that blockchain, let's say, as a sidechain to Cardano that will allow people to interact with Cardano as an ecosystem. It's a beautiful vision, and I can't help but just be so optimistic about its potential as a result.
Yeah. I have a question though. I still haven't really understood the concept of a country in technology. You see, for example, when the Android operating system came up, I remember we had these Galaxy S's which were able to be broken whatever, like we had to go and jailbreak them. And that was quite innovative because you could change the operating system the way you wanted. And Android, I think, possibly took off because they opened the operating system so that users can basically do whatever they want with it. And then afterwards, they came back again and we put everything according to the needs of the users so that the need to jailbreak may not yet be as great. So when you focus on a country, you remember when you were mentioning China? If you focus something around the country entity, you may face very big players. If you limit yourself to the countries, a country like the US can shut you off if you limit yourself to the US, or if you limit yourself to China, or if you limit yourself to Ethiopia or Georgia. I think that is possibly good because you are still dependent on them. But I think underlying all that issue of countries, I think we have to put something which is beyond the country, because the users will end up not being member of any country. You know, like there's certain people who actually even have like multiple citizenships. There could be a time when somebody has even no citizenship at all and still be able to live through the blockchain. So I think it's those countries are more, for me, limitations than gains. So instead of trying to get Ethiopia, get all the schools, and all the schools in Africa will come to you. So that will be something. For example, we can come freely without even having to ask any permission. If I have my records in a USB drive, well, I'm going to dump them on your network, and you're going to see a Congolese institution in your network because it's accessible. So where countries have made borders for their own benefits, and those borders for blockchains are more of a risk.
I think that's another really huge point. Juan Bennett, who created Filecoin, I remember he did a talk. I know it's on YouTube. I can't remember exactly what the name of the talk is, but it totally makes sense to me. Jurisdictions are going to fall. I mean, these are physical boundaries that don't exist today. They never existed. But to your point, people created these power centers and then put boundaries around these physical boundaries, and they said, this is my country and that's your country, and that's already gone away because Janti, where are you today?
Currently in Canada.
You're in Canada? Okay.
Yes.
You're in Canada.
Canada, Congo,
okay.
Ethiopia as well sometimes.
And we're having these conversations now, and as these conversations continue to develop and grow, we're going to form at some level sort of a jurisdiction around our conversations and the types of things that we're looking to bring to the world. So those things are already starting to fall. And if you're a country, nation state, power center, bank, whatever it might be, of course, if you've held this power for, ever, you're going to fight to keep that power. And I know that in the space, we hear a lot of conversation, like the fear coming out about the nation state and being able to stop, this and that and the other thing. And I really don't see it that way. I just think this is an idea in its time. When I look at my daughter, who plays a lot of Roblox and Minecraft, I recognize that a lot of the things that we're doing today are not for us. They are already engaged in those ecosystems, having relationships with people that live thousands of miles away from them. So they are not going to go back, to only having relationships with people that are in their jurisdiction or in their nation state or in their country. So I think, and I've had this conversation quite a bit, and I really do believe this. The future hasn't happened yet. It just hasn't happened. We get to create it. And if we are diligent about what we want the future to look like for ourselves and for our children, then we'll put the work in. If we're not diligent about it, there are people who are looking to keep power. They're being diligent. They're going to be diligent, and they're going to shape things the way that they want them to be. And that exact same thing happened with the internet. The internet was this big open, everybody's happy, sharing information, and then these power centers developed at the ISP where they control your pipe to the rest of the internet. So again, I just think that we get to decide what this looks like. So.
Oh, thanks for sharing your thoughts. I mean, on a fundamental level, I think the open blockchain is not compatible with any power centers, and it just pushes people, pushes the power to the edges in a sense. So you do have power, but as a collective, and that power could be expressed through a vote. And that's a beautiful part of it, to be honest with you. But we have a way to get there. And my biggest fear again is that we live on a physical plane, and in order for blockchain to work and to serve the humanity the way that we want it to, you need power centers to enforce laws. Let's take this hypothetical situation, right? You, as a coffee farmer in Ethiopia, you take a loan. Let's say you take a loan from a decentralized lending sort of platform, right? And that decentralized lending platform basically has, if officially, your title, which is, let's again assume that it is a digital title to your farm, right? And let's say you default on your loan, and as the the laws of economics and finance work, they give you a couple of options to repay, and you can't. Let's say that these things happen. This is natural, and then somebody has to go and repossess your land, your asset, and that cannot be delegated to. I mean, it could be, but it's hard if you don't have a buy-in from a local jurisdiction that enforces the laws that are on the blockchain in order to make it work. So you need something that exists on the local level that enforces the rules that have been written somewhere in the blockchain in order for the economy to work. And that's where these local jurisdictions or countries or nation states come in to actually provide value, because that's part of the equation of how the world works.
I think we sometimes talk about them as if they're not us. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
us. Yeah,
Yes.
right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, we get to decide that, and as we continue to open things up, and more is available about the possibilities. I think like Janti was saying, I mean, with the youth of the legislature in the DRC, or government in DRC, those folks are, they're coming, they're coming to power. And again, I think if we continue to push, as the private sector, as we continue to push things forward in a way that we want to see things kind of showing up, we will have those enforcement mechanisms, although they won't look the way that they used to. I think we oftentimes think about these power structures, these state actors, the way that they used to be. And I just believe, I believe that that's changing, and that it's going to be as the private sector is opening up. I do think that the political sector is going to open up as well, because it's at some level proven not to be effective in a lot of circumstances.
They will definitely have to evolve. I totally agree with you there, and that's where the buy-in comes. And projects like yourselves are quite crucial in that respect. I think WADA could make a huge contribution by educating the legislation, the members of legislative branch in these countries, where they need to understand the implications of this technology for their respective sort of jurisdictions, and try to basically find ways to harness it. But that being said, I wanted to, we're at the top of the hour. We wanted to just basically take this opportunity to thank you again for coming on our show. And I apologize for the technical glitches and whatnot. I had to last minute do some emergency things, but I hope that I had your opportunity to talk about WADA. And if you have any parting thoughts about your projects, about voting, and what the audience needs to be aware of, this is the time.
Okay, so Infant 3, as all of us know, WADA didn't get any funding, and through Gary Golden and Rick, we were able to go to the community, and we got the funding that we needed for them. So Fund 4 is here, what we are asking the community, and we're hoping that as many people as possible did register. So I think that Umed has offered to link some of our proposals in the description of this video. So please look out for us. Please vote for us. We want to continue to do the work that we need to do on the ground. So thanks to the Cardano community. It's been such a supportive community for us. And we are looking forward to many years ahead in this relationship.
Thanks, Mercy. Sydney, Janti, any last parting thoughts?
I just echo Mercy's thoughts. I haven't been as visible, although I know how valuable the Cardano community has been to the to what WADA is building, and just want to kind of give thanks to everyone that I've had an opportunity to sit with and meet, and it's happening. Everyone that I've met on the WADA team is really passionate about what the technology can do and where we're going with it, and definitely support us in Catalyst, and even outside of Catalyst, give us a holler, an email, or whatever, if you are interested in knowing more about what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, and for me, I would like to thank again those who are watching, and encourage all of us to vote. Voting within the cryptocurrency ecosystem is akin to voting in a political system we were mentioning. So it's very important, and it has an impact. We are voting for funding, but there are more other issues that people will be voting on in the future. So yes, we invite you to vote for our proposals today, but again, keep on voting even in the future.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to get today. And then, ladies and gentlemen, this was WADA, a project that is being considered on Fund 4. Please don't forget to vote, and